Hello everyone, welcome back. We are talking about Deuteronomy chapter 21 today. There's a free PDF on the website that you can download, and there's a bunch of other books and studies, long-form studies out there on the website as well. So check that out. There's some books you can purchase on Amazon.com. Lord willing, all these notes will be put into a book, and you'll be able to purchase that eventually. When that's out, there will be a link down in the description, but it's not out quite yet. But check if you're watching this sometime in the future. Deuteronomy chapter 21, when did these events happen? We are in roughly 1450 BC. Who are our main characters? We've got the Israelites, who are a large nation of people that have come out of Egypt. They spent 40 years in the wilderness wandering around because of their faithlessness to God. But they've now come to the borders of the land of Canaan, also known as the Promised Land, which God promised to give them as a home. They were being led by our second main character, and that is Moses, God's selected man. God talked to Moses, and Moses was kind of the representative, the liaison, the go-between between God and the Israelite nation. Now, for our map, where did these events happen? We are still located in Moab. Moses is talking to the Israelites, reminding them about God's laws. Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 5 tells us this took place in Moab, probably near Mount Pisgah. This chapter is pretty interesting because it covers a wide variety of topics, and so we have to move pretty fast to stay under our time. So just know that we're covering a lot here, and the ideas aren't necessarily all connected together. So I've got 5 sections. The first section, verses 1 through 9, making atonement for unsolved murders. So if a person was found to be murdered in the open country, but the murderer's identity was a mystery, then the elders from the nearest town were to go through a ceremony that was prescribed by God to cleanse the guilt of innocent blood from the land. The elders were to take a heifer that had never been used for work, take it down to a valley where there was running water, and break the animal's neck. The elders were then to wash their hands and to testify in the presence of the priests that they had no knowledge of who had killed this individual. And when this ceremony was complete, God would remove the blood guilt from the land. So, even in cases where the murderer wasn't known, you see how seriously God took the spilling of innocent blood. Section number 2 covers something completely different. This is verses 10 through 14, marrying a foreign female captive. Now, if an Israelite man wanted to marry a foreign woman who had been taken captive during one of their battles, during one of their wars, he could do so, but first she had to go through a process. She had to shave her head, trim her nails, remove her foreign clothing, and then lament her father and her mother for 1 month. And then the man could marry her and she would be his wife. We're also told that later on, if the man decided that he wanted a divorce, that he was to set the woman free. She wasn't allowed to remain in his house as like his slave, and he wasn't allowed to sell her to somebody else. She had to be set free. Section number 3 talks about something completely different. Verses 15 through 17, laws about the inheritance of a firstborn son. If a man had 2 wives, which the Israelites were allowed to do, and he loved one of his wives, but he didn't love the other one nearly as much, he had to give the firstborn son a double portion of the inheritance, even if the firstborn son was the son of his unloved wife. So basically, he wasn't allowed to deprive his oldest son of his birthright just because he was the son of the wife that he loved the least. Our next section, verses 18 through 21, on a completely different subject, the punishment for a rebellious son. Now, if a husband and a wife had a son who was stubborn and rebellious and refused to listen to him, then they were supposed to bring their son to the elders of the city, and the son was to be stoned to death. The son's actions were considered to be a, quote, evil that needed to be purged from Israel. And so you see, God took respect of parents very seriously, even included in the 10 Commandments. Remember that? Honor your father and your mother. So I thought about using this as an application for how we really need to take this more seriously and how maybe we don't take it as seriously as we should. But I chose another application, but spend some time thinking about that. And now for our final section, you guessed it, it's completely different. Verses 22 through 23, the curse of hanging on a tree. If a man was executed for a crime and his body was hung on a tree, the Israelites were not allowed to leave his body hanging there overnight. The body was supposed to be buried before the sun went down because Moses told them that, quote, a hanged man is cursed by God. And this is what we're going to talk about in our application section. You find that application as we scroll down the page a little bit. Do you know anybody who was hung on a tree? Jesus, right? He was hung on a cross, which was made out of wood. Jesus died a humiliating and accursed death to save us from sin. Paul actually references back to Deuteronomy chapter 21, verse 23, when he's writing the book of Galatians in the New Testament. Quote, Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, cursed is everyone who is hanged on a tree. Galatians chapter 3, verse 13. So Jesus was hung on a tree like an executed criminal. So just take some time when you finish up this study to meditate on how much Jesus humbled himself to save us. He goes from being obviously the creator of the universe, the king of all things, to taking this cursed death on himself willingly so that we could escape the punishment of our sin.